someone who knows a thing or two about local businesses, has joined us here in the Live Casino Hotel studio as we continue our 2020 GCR Mayoral Forum. She is Mary Miller, and she is with us here today. Mary, it's wonderful to meet you. We really appreciate you coming in. Obviously, the circumstances are far from perfect for doing this, but really appreciate you still coming in and chatting with us this morning.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here, and I appreciate all the coverage you're giving the issues in Baltimore today. Well,
thank you for that. We have a lot of stuff that we want to talk about with you that's sort of the areas where we do sports here, right? So there's a lot of areas where sports and politics mix, but before we get to that, I think obviously we need to talk about what's going on, and there's the 10,000-pound elephant in the room. Where are you, your campaign with dealing with the coronavirus outbreak, and what needs to happen for the city right now as we all go through this thing together?
Well, we're all adapting hourly to the news and the developments with the coronavirus. And I would say my campaign is nowhere near as important as making sure the city of Baltimore gets through this as well as we possibly can. We're adapting. We are going to virtual campaigning. We're doing a lot more online and with Zoom meetings and radio interviews like this. And as we go along, we'll figure out the best ways to reach the voters and to reach them, particularly now that the primary date has been pushed back to June 2nd. We have a little bit more runway to work on the election. So we're focused on that. But, first and foremost, we're focused on Baltimore and what the city can be doing. And I think that some of the things that I'm seeing are very heartening in the way citizens are stepping up to support people, to support local businesses, as you just pointed out. But, our state of readiness has to get even stronger, I think. There's the testing for this virus that needs to get more available and more accessible to people, but also being ready for mitigation if we do see more cases here, that we have the healthcare resources in place.
What's your general message to people right now? As I think there's a lot of just confusion and fear, and what's your general message to the citizens of Baltimore?
Yeah. So my general message is don't panic. I think that Governor Hogan has done a very good job of being proactive and asking people to stay home and to ask businesses to close. It's extremely painful for people in many respects, and certainly economically for our environment, but it is the right decision. It's the right thing to do, and I think being aggressive about that will slow the contagion of the virus, and it will allow us to devote the resources more accurately as we do have cases emerge.
I think we all echo those sentiments. Do not panic, but be vigilant, right? Like be vigilant as we go through this, and patient. Oh, be patient.
I was talking to a mother at home yesterday, and she said, I've got small kids. She said, I'm like checking the days off on the wall, making those marks. And we're just at the beginning of this, so I think people will have to really appreciate that this isn't going to be fixed overnight. This is going to be long.
I have a 2- and a 5-year-old. And trying to possibly get any grasp for them of what's going on right now is impossible. Yeah. And we've used the term virus. We've said that term with them, but they have no context whatsoever. To them, it's, Daddy, why aren't we going to the trampoline park today? Why aren't we? Why are we still stuck here? It's. Yeah. And I mean, they're driving me nuts, and they're screaming and they're yelling, and I've had some fun videos that people have enjoyed on my 2-year-old the other day. He said, I don't want to be at the house, and I said, well, where do you want to be? Nowhere. It's just it's what you're dealing with.
It's a new normal that none of us are used to, and I think about things like school kids, and I hope people will help them keep up with their schoolwork. Yeah. That's available online and in hard copy, but kids are going to miss weeks of school, and we don't want to get behind there. So there are lots of ways that you can step up personally to help people, and just check in on elderly people who may be isolated, maybe fearful and worried about things. We can all become better through this process.
That's wonderful thoughts. All right, let's talk about some things as far as the campaign is concerned, some areas where sports and politics mix. I'm going to start with one that appears as though it's moving towards the ballot in November, and so might not really be something that you have to deal with necessarily as mayor of the city, but that's sports betting. And it looks as though the citizens are going to have their say on sports betting. At the moment, the city, it would be impacted because the casino would have the option for sports betting, and also the new Pimlico would have the option for sports betting. To you, important for the future of the city that sports betting is an option in those locations? Is it something where maybe you'd like to see more places in the course of the city proper where that would be an option for people that want to do it?
So I agree with you. I think this is working towards a favorable outcome in terms of the voters are likely to legalize sports betting. And I think that puts Maryland in a good position with surrounding jurisdictions that may already be offering it. So I think that that's likely to happen. I think the decisions about where it can be, rest in a number of hands. So I can't forecast who's going to put it in play in different venues. But I would just say you want to make sure that it is broadly available, fairly available, and that we're paying attention to some of the issues around gambling and betting, too, for people, and making sure that we have appropriate safeguards there.
As far as one of the things you're feeling, it seems like there's a viability thing, right, that we've dealt with before. And we dealt with this, obviously, with slots. We dealt with this that we're watching too much business depart, right? We're watching too much business go elsewhere. The flip side is making sure we know where the money is going, and that also ended up being an issue after slots. Is that a concern? I know, again, we're talking about state versus local issues at the moment, but is that a concern for you doing this?
It is a concern for me. I have put out on my campaign website a plan for inclusive growth in Baltimore, which is one of the big themes of my campaign. But I think we all have to think about how can we make sure that Baltimore is really competitive as a place, as an entity, and that we're making sure that our revenue sources are stable and that they are strong and that they allow us to grow here. So I think this is another tool in the toolkit, and we need to think about the revenue potential, but how we'll use those revenues too, and how do they fit our priorities as a city and what we want to do here.
Mary Miller is with us here in the Live Casino Hotel studio for our GCR Mayoral Forum. So it ties right in, obviously, with the future of Pimlico. And again, the good news is it's looking like that will be taken care of before you would ever take office as mayor. So I guess let's start with, are you on board, knowing what's in front and knowing what the agreement is? Are you on board with this being the best possible thing for the city and really more for the Park Heights community, what the new Pimlico is going to be?
I am totally on board with the Pimlico plan. I think it's been very carefully negotiated and carefully constructed. Today's a really pivotal day because, as you know, the legislature is going to end their...
This is the final day,
This is the final day, and the bill has passed both the House and the Senate and is now just waiting final approval. So Pimlico's redevelopment, I think, is really critical, not just as the sports venue for the Preakness, but the bigger issue for the whole community. This is an opportunity for 50 acres of redevelopment that can really benefit Park Heights, but also connect it better with the Mount Washington community south of it. The engagement year-round of the property to allow for much more community benefit, I think, is really important. The anchor institution next door, Sinai Hospital, and their plans for redevelopment, job creation, and expansion on part of the site, I think that's huge. So this is a really important project. I like the fact that they're using the Maryland Stadium Authority to do the financing. I spent years, in running the Maryland Bond Fund at T. Rowe Price. I invested in many of the projects the Stadium Authority has brought to life, and they are a good manager, and they will bring that project to life.
Do you have a sense of what it's going to take in order to make this more, it's a fine line, right? We want it to be a more vibrant area. We want it to be somewhere that's attracting more people, and yet we also don't want to displace anyone in the Park Heights community. Can you speak to how that looks, how we go about accomplishing both things as we do this moving forwards?
Absolutely. I think the key is community engagement, and that you make sure you get ahead of an issue like gentrification, to make sure that you are preserving affordable housing options. You make sure that you're investing in small businesses in the community. Make sure that you're creating jobs through the construction potential and the work with Sinai and others that are going to create a bigger economic force in that area. But we do have the opportunity now, as it's just beginning, to really, hardwire those concerns right in and say we want to make sure that everybody benefits from this development.
We're not doing anything that leaves anybody in the cold. I understand exactly what you're saying. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. It's great to have the agreement in place, right? The original fear of losing the Preakness, it looks like that's dissipated, but yet there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, we've got the plan. Now it comes down to execution, and we're in the early innings.
No
so
question.
To speak.
No question.
But I think with thoughtful planning and, again, really involving the community associations in the work as you go along, I think you could have a really strong win for Park Heights.
All right, you spoke about opportunity, and it would seem like, and again, every time I bring up this topic, I need to preface it by saying what Frank Remish and his team have done with the current Royal Farms Arena is... there could be a book written about what they've done, given what they were handed, and what they've been able to accomplish and getting world-class events there and getting people into the building. It's incredible what they've done. But we all still know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like, we can't change that this is what it is. It is decades too old. Yeah. It is, still, as much as they've done, it's still run down and outdated. Mm-hmm. What's your vision for the future of Royal Farms Arena? I.e. renovation, completely building a new building. Where is it on your priority list? It's something that, unfortunately, we've allowed to slip through the cracks so much in our city over the years.
So sometimes I talk about Baltimore as a city of fits and starts, where we have lots of ambition and lots of visions, but we don't execute well. And I think this is an example of that. I want to keep the arena downtown. I think it can be a very important engine for entertainment. And
when you say that, do you mean specifically in the same location, or just, like there's been some people have said maybe on the other side of the convention center would be a good place to build a new arena. Does that matter that it's in the exact same location, or just downtown?
It doesn't matter to me if it's in exactly the same location. I think that's going to come down to a matter of economics and what's financially possible. And I think we're going to have to do some form of public-private partnership here to get it done. But the important thing is to keep it downtown, to plan well, to make sure that there's good access to it, and that we have good public transit options for people to get to the arena. That's part of sort of my transportation thinking about Baltimore, that we have not done a good job of serving our population well with public transportation. That should be part of the plan for the arena, but it's time. As you pointed out, this has been going on for a very long time, and I think we just need to get economic development specialists together and figure out the plan for the arena and move forward with it as quickly as possible.
It really does feel like there almost has to be the buck stops here type of moment for the city, that we say we can't just keep passing this off and saying, hey, we're getting by, and we've got a viable building. Like, at some point it feels like there's got to be a breaking look at everywhere else in the country. Like, we are in such the minority to be dealing with this, where the only building of this size that we have is so run down and outdated. And it feels like, part of the problem being that we're dealing with so many other real significant issues, right? If you take office, you're going to be dealing with crime rate and drug rate and education and all of those things that, in comparison,
Well, what I like to say is we don't just have a crime problem, we have an economic opportunity problem. And I want to bring that right back into the mayor's office. We have distanced economic development from the mayor's front office, and I think it has to be the job of the mayor to say, we have got to solve our crime problems, but we also have to be thinking very broadly about how we can raise the income base in the city, provide more opportunity to people in this city, and really drive economic development, because that's the way we're going to be able to pay for things like the Kerwin Commission recommendations, like the job creation that we want to do in Baltimore. We have so many things we want to invest in, but the best way to do that is to grow our economic base. And right now we have a huge threat in front of us with the coronavirus, because we're going to see a big drop in economic activity. I think the city should be getting ahead of that.
She is Mary Miller. She's with us here in the live casino hotel studio of Glenn Clark Radio. Mary, it's funny you bring up public transportation, because it's one of the things I'm tying to a broader topic, which is the other one I wanted to bring up to you, and that's sort of the future of the Orioles and the need to get people back to games and coming downtown. So I guess let's take this layer to layer. I'll start with just broadly. There's been some nervousness. There's an issue with the Orioles and their lease with the state, and so there's been all these sort of kind of crazy rumors. Do you have any fear at all about just the generic future of the Baltimore Orioles?
I am not worried about the Orioles leaving Baltimore. Their lease with the Maryland Stadium Authority, I think, is up in 2021, but certainly the owners of the team have been steadfast in their support, and the Orioles belong in Baltimore. We need to improve the performance of the Baltimore Orioles team.
Yes.
But I would note that people go to Ravens games. People go to the Orioles Stadium for a Billy Joel concert. I don't think there's an issue of people not coming downtown to games. We just need to make it a more exciting team for people to come watch.
So this is, I think I've dealt with this, it's a perception versus reality thing, right? And that's the way that I've been presenting it when we've been having these conversations. That there are people that will tell you, I don't want to come downtown anymore, I don't feel safe. And I've heard this from a few people. Well, you're coming downtown when Lamar Jackson's making everybody go crazy and lose their minds, and you're coming downtown when Billy Joel plays a concert. So what's the there seems to be an amount of dissonance when we're talking about people that say they don't feel safe. do you believe it's safe to come downtown?
I absolutely do. I've lived in the city for 34 years, and I come downtown all the time. So I want to dispel that perception.
Not today. Not today. Stay home today. We're talking about, obviously, and when life gets back to normal a little bit.
Yes, in normal times. I have no fears about coming downtown in Baltimore. I think it is absolutely the city's responsibility to provide public safety. People need to feel safe in Baltimore. And I want to get behind our police commissioner, Michael Harrison, and give him every ounce of support he needs to make that the reality. And I think that with that, as we execute on that, of bringing crime down in Baltimore, improving the perception of public safety, and changing the culture of policing in Baltimore, we can certainly provide protection for fans coming downtown for sports events, and we should definitely encourage people to do that. The Orioles are part of the fabric of Baltimore, and I don't want anything about that to change.
All right, so you bring up public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like to me that's a bigger part of this generic issue than people want to talk. When we talk about why aren't people coming downtown, or why are people that, yes, it's easy to go to, well, we're afraid, or everything changed after Freddie Gray, or whatever it is that you want to go to. But I've brought this up for years. Tangibly, part of the problem to me is you have a limited option when it comes to public transportation. And that now, particularly for me as somebody with 2 kids and thinking about how I'm going to get there, how much it costs to park, things along those lines, these are tangible things for me that I have to think about when I make that decision about going to a game or another event downtown. I know that, again, we're dealing with local versus state issues, but how much of that to you is real that we need to get people back downtown and we need to improve public transportation in order to make sure that happens?
I think that's absolutely true. 30% of Baltimore residents do not own a car. We have a public transit system that is run by the state of Maryland, and I don't think we've exerted enough local control over public transportation. The city has a Department of Transportation. I think we should get much more involved in bus routing in Baltimore, in completing routes that are disconnected, and making it easier for people to get from point A to point B. We've never completed sort of the pedestrian bike complete streets plan that I hope will come out from the city this year, but we could make it easier for people to get around Baltimore not in cars. I would support that. But I think probably the key to this, we're not getting the red line. I think the key is probably working much harder on the bus system to get people around Baltimore and making people feel more comfortable using that.
There's, somebody would say back, hey, we don't, the buses are still on the road, right? And I get it. Unfortunately, the red line thing is what it is.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot we can do about it today, although I hope that changes at some point in the future. It would have seemed like that would have, we're going to end up in a different tangent and a different conversation if I keep going with this.
But, the city needs to be more proactive about things.
Right.
I mean, we learned about the red line after the decision was made. We need to get in front of these things and take more charge of our destiny here. And I think public transportation is one place we could do that. I've said, that I would get behind the idea of creating a regional transportation authority that is Baltimore and the surrounding counties to get a much better handle on public transit and also to work on providing more access and more availability.
It seems like it's either that or we just ask Elon Musk to fix everything. It seems like that's where we're at this point.
We have to think about that. I mean, if we go to a world where people are less reliant on cars, what does that mean? And what additional investments do we need to make?
Mary Miller, I know it's at Elect Mary Miller on Twitter.
ElectMaryMiller.com.
And ElectMaryMiller.com is the website for people to find out more. A message for Baltimore voters before you leave?
I just want to thank people for all the care that they're taking right now to protect themselves and their families and to look out for other people in Baltimore. We will get through this. This city is resilient. It's strong. I'm so impressed with all the voluntary efforts that I'm reading about. Just be safe. Don't panic. Be informed. And, in a matter of months, we'll be able to get back to normal.
I appreciate all of those sentiments. I really appreciate you coming in. It would have been an easy time for you to say, I don't know if I really want to come in right now, but really appreciate you coming in and talking about these things in these places where sports and politics mix. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.